Real estate investing can bring big reward and big risks. So know your risks. Welcome to the Real Estate Risk Report, the show for real-world insight on real estate investment risk. Now, here's your host, Lance Pederson.
Thank you for joining the Real Estate Risk Report. I'm your host, as always, Lance Pederson. So today I have with me Jennifer Searles with Veritas Impact Partners. She is based in Dallas, Texas, which just so happens to be a little rainy and drizzly and dreary as we're recording this. But thanks for joining me, Jennifer. I appreciate you taking the time to come on the show.
Yeah, thanks, Lance. I'm honored to be here.
So this is episode 3 of our 3-part sort of series that we've been doing with JP and Adrian with Thrive FP down in Austin, and really where we're talking about how real estate investors, multifamily operators in particular, can really accomplish 2 sort of objectives at once, right? They can increase the NOI of their properties and make them more profitable while also impacting the residents and tenants of these communities that they live in. And so through different programs and just kind of, I guess, just reframing how people look at the ways that they can really make a difference in people's lives. Once again, without necessarily, I think a lot of times people think that if they do something that's good for people, that will mean that it'll be bad for the bottom line. It actually turns out that's not the case. As the first 2 episodes have really demonstrated, JP and Adrian are very passionate about this, and they're obviously very involved with Veritas Impact Partners, and Jennifer heads that up. So before we kind of get into all things good about the Veritas Impact Partners, why don't you share a little bit with us about your background, Jennifer, and then how you ended up getting involved with the nonprofit there at Veritas Impact Partners.
Yeah. So I've been working in the nonprofit space for 18 years. I am a mission-driven person. I actually had a little stint in a real estate office where I got to work a little bit in Baltimore, Maryland at one time, and just didn't get me going as much as it does helping people. And so that's where I've been. I've worked in poverty strategies, and so what led me to Veritas was I was working for a healthcare organization. So I'd worked in permanent supportive housing, working to help people who were chronically homeless. I've worked to help the working poor with financial stability. And then I moved into health, realizing that there's a couple key roots that affect people's lives, and that's health and housing are the big ones there. If you don't have a roof over your head, and if you don't feel well, it doesn't really matter what's in your bank account. And so I was working to bring affordable health care to people who were uninsured here in Dallas. And it just really struck me. There's a whole bunch of people who live in apartments. And we know this crisis in our country. 20 million renters in the United States can't afford where they live. All their money goes to rent. So they have no money for health or education, food, these other things. And more specifically, when you just think about it, they have no bandwidth to get the resources. When you get up and you have a 40-minute commute to work, and you work at an hourly job where you have a 30-minute lunch break, you don't have time to go down to some brick and mortar building that a nonprofit has, fill out about 10 to 20 forms to hope you're qualified. And that's really where the crisis is in our country. There's a lot of people who are working, who make $30,000 to $49,000 a year, work 40 hours a week, and they can't fit it all in their life. Can't fit a $1,200 a month insurance payment into that budget. And that's not a matter of cutting out a few lattes. Yeah. And so I started having this idea that what if we started going to where they live? What if we went to apartment communities? So while I was at this healthcare organization, this was pre-COVID, I wrote a white paper about what would it look like to bring telehealth to working class apartment residents right where they lived.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where then COVID hit and the world changed, and I sort of got connected with Veritas through that. But to finish up what it matters to me, I am that working class person. I have been that person. Life happens. And 10 years ago, I decided to have a baby. My husband at the time, we planned, we had a nest egg, and then everything fell apart. My son was born premature, critically ill, and 6 weeks into his life, my husband lost his job. We immediately sold our house. We got a rental, paid 43% of my income towards just that rent. I know well the choices, the roulette of what bill to pay this month, what bill to pay next month. I know what it feels like to go to the grocery store and have to take things off the belt at the end of when you get your bill because you're like, well, I can't afford that. I know what it feels like to pray over a crib in the dark of night, praying, please get better. I don't have the money to go to the doctor. Mm-hmm. All the while, you're in your house and you think nobody knows. Nobody knows what this feels like. My husband made $41,000 a year for a family of 4 in Baltimore, Maryland.
Yep.
And you have to just make choices. And what I know to be true is that it's the neighbors who help you get to the next step. And the reason I'm here today is because I had neighbors who helped me, who held my hand, who cried with me and encouraged me. And we were able to not fall further, but rise above. And so this isn't about a character flaw. It's about that all of us will face challenges in our life. And how do we come alongside each other as neighbors so that not just one family is better, but the greater community is better. And so that's why I do this work, because people feel a lot of shame mm-hmm. about who they are. And we need, as we found through this pandemic, we need all kinds of neighbors. We need plumbers and electricians. We need grocery store clerks. We need Amazon delivery drivers, yep. just like we need those with college degrees and leaders and managers. But it takes all of us to build a community. And so I feel honored to help in any way I can to be a voice for the working middle class.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of times, especially in the real estate business, it's like this automatic, statement of, we do workforce housing, and it's you just hear it over and over and over again. But like you just described, workforce equals what you just said, right? Workforce, that's what workforce is. So workforce is $41,000. They're the ones who are, delivered your groceries this morning. They're the boxes, the Amazon boxes, and those sorts of things. Now the plumbers make a lot of money, so I think they're okay. They're probably not living in the rental apartment, but anyway, just kidding. So yeah, so that's interesting. So for you, like you said, you've lived it, you've been there, and it is interesting because I think that's the other piece that gets overlooked for multifamily syndications and getting the additional, income streams. And, those are all great things. Don't get me wrong. But ultimately, that is what's happening inside of those apartment communities. Like you said, is that it's the neighbor next to you, who's been in similar situations or whatever that are supporting each other. And much of this activity, the owners and operators of these places usually aren't, I'm not saying all, right? But I don't know if they're fully aware of those things, right? I don't know if they think right. about it that way. And I think that's what strikes me with, JP and Adrian specifically, that Adrian obviously came from, that was sort of his education was from that side of things, right? So he'd seen it, but the fact that they took action and realized okay, this is who lives in our communities, right? And they have additional needs, and it's not just giving them a sparkling pool, that they'll barely ever use. There's other things that they need and appreciate much more.
Well, when you look at communities, I think what's exciting about JP and Adrian and all the founders of Veritas is that's who we're serving. We're serving the missing middle class.
Yeah.
You know, when it comes to helping people, we often think about the person holding a sign on the side of the road. Or we think of, you know, somebody, a veteran, right? A homeless vet or something like that. And those people need help. They need help. There's a lot of great organizations, but we don't often think of that working class individual or family. Because as I've sat across many residents and heard them say, listen, I'm going to pay my rent. I won't eat, but I'm going to pay my rent.
Yeah.
And we think, again, that, they don't need help, just, you know, do it yourself. And what I love about JP and Adrian and the intention here is that what happens when we make investments in people who aren't at the bottom, but are kind of on the edge. The fact is, 41% of Americans can't afford a $500 emergency. So think about that. So if you're tired, you need new tires, you know, you have to go to the doctor that month. You get a cracked windshield, your computer breaks, a whole host of items that make your life go. Any one of those can throw you into a financial tailspin where you're either having to get payday loans, you're having to borrow money, you're having to say, well, I can't pay this bill this month. And then you get on this cycle, and it's how quick can you dig out? Because the truth of the matter is that you just don't have enough to make it all work at the same time. And that's why you can't ever bridge that gap to actually building equity and assets that you need to get to the next level, because you're always on a financial tipping point. And so by focusing on workforce housing, or as we call revitalizing America's middle class, what we're doing is helping stop that seesaw of, is this the month that disaster strikes?
Yeah. And so let's talk about how Veritas Impact Partners can, you know, where you guys enter the picture, right? Like how does it work? You know, should a multifamily operator be listening to this, episode as an example, and they're starting to realize, like, oh my gosh, you're right, it is this. I mean, that statistic alone of, 42%, can't, shoulder or deal with a $500, emergency is startling, right? And the seesaw that you speak of. So how does Veritas Impact Partners kind of plug into a community to be of help, to support the neighbors who, you can reach out to and cry on their shoulder, but what other things are happening if a community is sort of plugged into Veritas Impact Partners?
Yeah, thanks, Lance. Well, I got to tell you, I am on fire to be a part of this organization. And there's a couple real key things that make us different. And so I want to start there. Mm-hmm. Number one is that we are the S in your ESG plan. It's the big thing everybody's talking about. You can do low flush toilets and all those kind of things, but everybody's trying to figure out how do we do social impact? What is that? And so that's what we are. Veritas is the action arm of your social impact. Owners, operators, property managers, they have big day jobs. It takes a lot to manage those properties and keep all of that going. And so that's where Veritas comes in. We come in and from the get-go, take care of all of the social impact needs. We focus on health and wellness, education, and then economic advancement. And we have unique programs designed around that. But our biggest difference from Why not partner with another nonprofit, right? Why not get the local nonprofit to come do a food drive or something like that? Because they don't have the relationship. Because then it just becomes, come on the property, hand something out, do some flyers, and you can't really make any decisions on, is this really helping my property? Is this really reaching my neighbors? We have a thing we call radical resident engagement at Veritas, and that's our centerpiece. We don't measure bingo nights and pizza parties. We measure living room conversations. I can deliver to you that you will have 2.6 touches per month per unit. That means every single household on your family has an interaction with Veritas. Every single household has access, has opportunity, and relationships are built. When you have a relationship with your residents, well, then that's what drives all of it. It drives their individual success by accessing the programs. It drives your financial returns by creating a community that has that stickiness factor. And it increases the support to leasing offices. It becomes a benefit that the community can say, yeah, I'll go across and live at the apartment community across the street, and it's got a new sparkling pool. But at this community, I have free health. I get free telehealth. So in essence, what Veritas does is we come on and we are the full-time engagement partner for your residents. We work to develop a plan that is able to deliver results on increasing health for every resident, giving education opportunities for both youth and adult, creating communities through resident council meetings, and working with you to make sure that your renters feel heard, feel like they have a place, a voice, and creating home for them. So that's what I'm excited about. And the last thing I'll just say here is that what makes us different is that we're your full-time partner. Yeah. That we are totally engaged with your teams, whether it's your property management team, whether it's your asset management teams. Again, it's not other nonprofits are doing great work, but they're not funded. Part of the problem is they're not funded to be able to go to your apartment community. We have no brick and mortar. Yeah. Veritas is completely virtual and hands-on. So we can tailor ourselves specifically to your community.
Got it. Yeah, so that makes sense. So for you, it's bringing it's really about the people then. So it's about partnering with, an owner, a property manager, what I mean, I guess in both, and then bringing in and then having that engagement to the 2.6 touches or whatever. Then that's, I guess it allows you to put your kind of finger on the pulse of it, right? Like
that's right.
A community, which you probably don't have now. How does that work? Like, so if someone wants to do that and that makes sense to them, is there like a cost to the how does it work? I mean, it's a nonprofit, yeah. So of course these resources exist. I'm assuming it's, you donate money to Veritas Impact Partners if this sort of, tugs at your heartstrings, and those funds are then used to hire people that can go out and do that work in the field. Is that accurate?
A little bit. Let me back up a little bit, Lance, and give you a picture. So when we come onto a property right now during the pandemic, we have 1,906 units from 6 different properties that we work with. Mm-hmm. We have several in Houston, Dallas, and our first property out of Texas in Atlanta. And so what we do on those properties are a couple of things. So we combine the in-person with a expansive digital operation. This is what makes us able to serve multiple properties throughout the country. It is our mission. Veritas's mission is to be a national solution, a partner with workforce housing owner operators. That's what we want to do. We want to be a partner. Currently on the market, there are a lot of resident service organizations, but they're usually only internal or they're for subsidized housing. And so our founders, JP Newman, Antonio Marquez, Anthony Tartar, they wanted to say, we want to make something available to all workforce housing owners. So that's really a big piece of what we do. We're able to drive digital engagement, so we're able to serve more households. So the first thing we do is we offer free telehealth for every resident. Every resident of the property has 24/7, 365-day access to free health care with our partnership with Teladoc. This is huge. As you know, outside of having a job and having a roof over your head, you need to feel good. And so, again, for the workforce housing person who has a 30-minute lunch break, how do you get down to the doctor, COVID, all these kind of things. So you can have it free, $75 copays, even if you had insurance. This saves money. We're saving residents an average of $578 a year right now on our usage by having this. The second part of this is what helps us have a relationship. You know, during COVID, I went door to door. That's what Veritas looks like on your property. I have a teammate, a director of resident engagement, and Amanda and I show up on a property and we just start knocking on doors. And the most beautiful thing happened. People invite me into their home. Time and time again, they try to serve us. They ask us to sit on their couch. And the reason they do that isn't because I'm giving a pizza party or a giveaway, but because I'm trying to be in a relationship. The second thing that we do is then we're able to drive different education and resource opportunities through our digital methods, email, texting, all these other kind of things. The last piece of what we do is we host resident councils. So every other month, we come onto the property and we gather people around the pool or some lawn, and it's just neighbors meeting neighbors. And we help set up WhatsApp channels and private Facebook groups so neighbors start talking to each other. A great thing happened on one of the properties. One of the neighbors said, well, listen, I need help getting my prescriptions. And so we helped him get that resource, but he said, listen, I can't drive to get it. Well, his neighbor said, well, I go there all the time. I'll help you. They don't need us to solve problems for them. They need us to make connections. And so how does this work? How does a property get this? So there is a cost, but we feel that it's well worth the cost. So we put together a service contract. And that cost covers the free health for every resident, all the marketing, all the programs. And again, Veritas measures this. And what does the owner get in return? Well, the owner really gets three standout things. The first is that we're going to drive a higher net operating income return. You're going to get cash back. So if you make a $25,000 investment into social impact to have Veritas on your property, we are going to drive about $100,000 net operating income return. And that's because how do you get there? Well, if we just save 20 residents from moving out, we can get you there. Yep. We believe we can drive a 60% retention rate, all because by creating community, creating relationships, engaging with your residents, that's going to make them stay. It's going to help them be sustainable, and that drives better financial returns for you. The other two things that you get as a part of really being one of the leaders focused on social impact, there's a lot of opportunities. In the last year, Veritas has been recognized as a partner with different opportunities with both Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. We're growing and so we're able to bring different loan options to partners. Workforce housing owners are well aware of all the programs that are available for social impact. They just don't have the partner who can help them access that. And Veritas can fill that gap. So again, some different financing options that we can bring because we're your social impact partner. And last but not least is the publicity and the marketing. You know, this topic is not going to go away. It's only going to get louder and louder, as you know, Lance. More people talking about what are we going to do to help the working middle class. And that's being a part of this movement, I think, is one of the best benefits of partnering with Veritas. And so we're able to collaborate and bring national attention and highlight our owner operators as being leaders in these initiatives.
Yeah, no, I think it's great. It seems then for, you know, those multifamily owner operators, the biggest intellectual or analytical sort of hurdle then for them is just the fact that, okay, if I outlay, you know, it wasn't in my pro forma, right? I didn't bake in sort of the social impact component of the original pro forma of 25 grand. So the leap of faith really is, and I think this is where JP is very, very passionate about it because he's seen it firsthand that the math does work, right? But it seems from listening to him that, you know, that's really the one where people get kind of hung up, right? Like, oh man, I'm gonna have this net new expense, and I'm not really quite sure if I'm gonna get ROI on it.
Right. Because you're measuring people's lives. And that's the hard thing, right? It's going to take some investment. So you have a choice to make. You can choose to pay $1.50 a unit and, you know, have somebody come on and pass some flyers out and do some goodwill. But what Veritas is saying, we are more expensive, for sure. It's about $120 a unit. So a 200-unit property, it's $24,000 a year. Veritas never passes our full expense on. We share that as a nonprofit. But what is the return on that? What's the return on that is that over the life of you holding that property, you now will have greater resident retention, lower turnover, better collections, higher NOI. You're going to be a magnet. During the pandemic, for example, Veritas, through our properties, provided 470 resource referrals. The properties that we worked with, because of that, had a 47% resident turnover. So beating national averages already in 9 months. Mm-hmm. We were able to intervene and provide, you know, more than 100 families with rental assistance. And then on top of that, 95% of all of the households have health access. 95%. So this is really an investment in changing the entire outlook of your community, not just a few households who choose to participate, but really infusing, as JP says, a new way where every stakeholder wins. Veritas is committed to creating a ecosystem where not just the family or the individual is successful, but owner-operators are seeing gains. We also work to help with your investor teams. There are a lot of investors right now who want to designate some of their money to social impact at your property. Again, having Veritas fill that void, be that partner with you, can really, again, help get over some of those hurdles. But the bottom line is making a heart decision.
Yeah.
A heart decision that, we can make our community stronger by making some key investments.
Yeah, and I agree with that. That's why I feel like it's the right thing to do, independent of the analysis and the ROI but we all like approach things differently, right? And so obviously to get this to spread, I mean, the things that strike me, right, is that, to the last comment you made, is that for any passive investors listening to this, right, adding that to your list of things that you require, right? I mean, like, because once again, this is a movement, right? Like, it makes sense, like, as we talk about it, but in order for the change to occur, a movement has to ensue, meaning people have to have the heartstrings tugged, right? And they need to get involved, right? And start doing this, because it's not being done, widely today. But investors, even though you might have only invested, $50,000 or $100,000 or whatever you did into some multifamily syndication, you have a voice, right? And when you're speaking with operators or deal sponsors saying, hey, I get it, this is a workforce housing deal. What are you guys doing what's your social impact plan, right? What do you plan on doing on that front, and sort of letting them know that it matters to you, right? I mean, like, it matters to me, and it's one of my criteria. All things being equal, if I can invest in something where one is going to try to transform the community, right, and do things for the people that live there, versus the other that's not, if everything else is equal, then I'm going to choose the one that's trying to make a difference, right? And letting that be known that I mean, that's a big part of this, right? Is that it's easy to talk about all these things, right? But it's the action. Action is everything, right? I mean, this is what it is. So if you hear this and you're the operator, right, and you've got multifamily properties where it's more workforce housing, you've got to take action. You've got to reach out to Jennifer and the team and say, hey, I want to learn more. I want to explore making this happen.
I think it's Lance, I think you're totally right. I think that, it's easy to get lost in the numbers. We can do that in a lot of areas of our life.
Yep.
But if you only get lost in the numbers, you forget the purpose.
Yeah.
And the purpose is that when we invest in our neighbors, the missing middle class, as we said again, these are the people. Listen, you can be a certified nursing assistant at a nursing home and make $12 an hour. Where are you supposed to live? This is the person who's going to bathe your mother or your father when they're in the nursing home.
Yep.
These are childcare workers. These are people who have extreme importance in your life. And by helping them have better health, access to resources, creating a voice for them, that's the purpose, that's the transformation. And the happy byproduct of that is that you're going to be included in all the good. The better they do, the better you do. Mm-hmm. So it is a hard thing not to get stuck in the numbers, but I can tell you, as I've sat down with resident after resident after resident, they're shocked, they're grateful, because one of the things that happens is when I go to a resident, imagine that. I go to a resident's door and they say, well, why are you here? And I say, well, I'm a gift. I'm a gift from the owners. Mm-hmm. They want you to have a healthy life. To see the shock and awe and love transformed on that resident's face, to know that someone cared about them without asking them to justify themselves or qualify themselves or explain themselves, just because they are a human being. Mm-hmm. That's powerful. That's really powerful. And you can be that person that is doing that is transforming people's lives like that.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it makes a ton of sense to me, and it's yeah, I mean, same thing. I mean, growing up, I mean, I lived in a mobile home park, and things like that. Like it just it's different. Like, and there's struggles, and when you're able to overcome those, and I think that's the point of this thing. Like you said, it's the teetering. It's that if we can help them stay healthy and and feel like someone cares about them, right? To not get down on their luck and to overcome, and that's what it does. It's like they propel themselves to do great things, or to continue to serve like they do, right? The CNA right. who's doing those things. I mean, that's just it's. Otherwise, that's what happens. You lose them the other way. People get down on their luck and they can't overcome, and they don't have the help, and they try to do it on their own. It makes a ton of sense. So I'm curious, right? I mean, it seems at this point, right, like it's an awareness. Veritas Impact Partners has an awareness problem, right? Meaning not enough people, hence why we're doing this. So let's assume that we overcome the awareness problem, and more multifamily owner operators are aware that this exists. What's the constraint then, right? Like what does Veritas Impact Partners need more of if people become aware of this? Because I'm assuming that if once you become aware of something like this, right, and you can be persuaded that either tugging at your heartstrings and you do it because of that, or you realize that you also can then improve your NOI, whatever floats your boat, right? What happens then? Like, what do you need more of? Is it, because it sounds like even the fee that you charge, the property, it still needs to be subsidized, right? So do you need more donations? Is it going to be hard to find the people to go on site, the community manage, like what's the constraint? Like, what's going to slow this down from spreading?
Yeah. So it's really the sky's the limit. We've got two needs right now. So the first is we need to talk to you. Let us do a presentation. Let us really help show you our process. We want you to look under the hood. We measure real data points, real results. So it's not just the touchy-feely. And we'd love to be able to talk to any team who's ready to listen. We're ready to start our national launch in 2022, and so we're ready to come join your team and your property and serve as your social impact partner. The other need that we have is we need some startup investors. If you believe in this, if you think you can want to be a part of a national initiative, we need some people to help us. Donations help us get there. Mm-hmm. We are going to be a new kind of nonprofit with a long-term sustainable revenue streams. But in that interim, we need the capital to be able to get ready for that launch. And so having gifts now helps us access more owner operators and transform the landscape in the future. So for sure, we need some brave founders to step up and make some gifts because of their belief of what this can do to transform a community. Because I'm of the mind, Lance, that I think most people do want this. The issue is how do I do it? How do I get there? How am I going to afford it? And what I'd say is let's come to the table and have a conversation. And I think that we can almost always overcome those barriers. But that's been the gap before. I don't think it's that people don't want to help people. Yeah. It's that how do I help? And that's what we're introducing to say. Veritas is here. We can take this load. We hire one resident engagement officer for every 1,500 units. So we're ready to come to your property. We have a digital back team. And like I said, we handle it from start to finish. We're just waiting for you to say, I'm ready.
And right now with the go-to-market is in the national launch in 2022. But so right now, if you had it your way, would it be getting more Texas specific? Like, is that sort of the target? I mean, coming out of this, if the phone's ringing, would you rather have people on the other end that are sort of, or email? People don't use the phone anymore, I guess. But either way, all right. Is it easier logistically to have it, the phone calls coming in from owner operators in Dallas, Houston, and Austin right now? I mean, like, is that in the interim, or just
no?
Curious? Yeah.
No, it can be anywhere. It really, we're ready to go anywhere. It does not have to be Texas based. The best phone call right now, like I said, if I don't want to put us too much in a need position, but we need some capital so we can continue to shore up our partnerships and have the infrastructure needed so that we can go out to and serve in the manner that we want to do to make those impacts. So those are the two things, but the phone call, we're ready for the phone calls because just like we want to be in a relationship with the residents, it's really important to Veritas to be in a relationship with owner operators. We want to understand what your goals are, what your challenges are. We are going to come in, we're going to know your community deeply, we're going to provide community assessments. So there's a process before it gets started. And so we're ready for those phone calls. Hey, as you and I were talking, Lance, I live 15 minutes from the airport. I've got my COVID vaccine, and I'm ready to go.
That's great. Yeah, and I think that it's, getting the, I think it's good. Once again, like you said, it's like letting people know specifically how they can be helpful, right? So this is, if this does move you, which is sort of, that's the phase that you're at. Like, you need people that, if you are a multifamily owner operator right now and you're hearing this, then it's like, if this is how you're wired and you want to be helpful, or you're operating your communities and already feel like that's what you're doing is trying to foster community and those things, then this is sort of that signal, right? Because it seems to me that strategically, the owner themselves, much like JP and Adrian at Thrive, FP have done, you make that investment, right? Like, it becomes an operating company, not just the community itself, but from your operating company standpoint, can be sort of the thing that, once again, making donations and getting involved at this level. That seems like the logical place to start, right? In terms of getting that startup capital in those donations.
That's right. Yeah. Well, like we said, what we want to do is create an ecosystem where everybody wins. And there's a lot of players, right? There's owner operators, there's property management groups, there's the guys doing the rehab for you, landscaping. It goes on. And as JP often says, we're all eating dinner because of the check of a renter. We're all eating dinner. All these companies, all these players are all eating dinner at the check of a renter. So what happens when all of us say, what do we have to reinvest back? And so if we all come together, and we're proposing that Veritas is that reinvestment vehicle, reinvest in Veritas so that we can transform, we can revitalize, we can lift up the working class family in America. And all of us then will be better for it. Your neighborhoods will be safer. Your apartment communities will be financially better. And in the long run, the personal goodwill you'll have.
Yeah, you're storing up treasures in heaven. That's the other piece of it, right? So you're making deposits all over the place, helping people, changing lives. Yeah, I love it. I'm all in. I think it's great. So if you want to give, where would they go to sort of make a donation? Like, if I wanted to give you money right now, I hear this. Where do they go to do that?
So you go to our website, veritasimpact.org.
Okay.
And you can make a donation on the website. Lance, if I can, let me just, because I want to bring it back to what that donation means. I want to just tell this story. So a lot of people know that Texas was just devastated during the winter storm a few months ago. And a beautiful story came out of that. So several of our Dallas properties had to have water turned off and pipes bursting and electricity out. And the leasing manager called Veritas first. They didn't call their regional. They didn't call their corporate office. They called Veritas first and said, help me. I have to let the residents know this is happening. We have to get them prepared. And so in 2 hours, Veritas had communicated with the entire resident community about fill your bathtubs. And in the following 2 weeks, we had 188 engagements at this one property Facebook. Every day, residents would go out and take pictures of where there was free water distribution and then post that on the Facebook page so other residents could know about it. We were able to, because we were talking to we were able to get other nonprofits to come to the property and bring water and pizza and resources. And this is just an example of how community is created. And so whether it's in good times or in that time of crisis. And so what happened out of that is that residents were connected, they were cared for, and they kept on moving without a drop. And that property now is just like nothing happened because Veritas had the relationship that was able to deliver the right service at the right time.
Yeah, no, that's great. Yeah, it's powerful stuff. I feel like that's the piece that it's been overlooked, and it can be, like you said, it's a gift. It's a gift at their door, and you never know when and who and what, but it's the whole, where do I turn? Where do I go? And that's just, it's just not there for many people, right? I mean, like they don't know where to turn. To your point, like you don't know where to go. And if something's there and you're being proactive about it, it just makes a ton of sense, because that's where a lot of the stuff happens, is that something occurs, and that's when the people, then they end up ending in some sort of eviction sort of thing, and like that's sad. Right, but they don't know. I mean, they're too proud to. They're going to pick up the phone and be like, "Hey, I can't." I mean, maybe they do, right? But it's a different conversation. And knowing that you have someone that you can turn to, just makes a ton of sense. And not to mention, like you said, just the time frame of. I mean, it is a pain in the butt to have to drive to go to the doctor or whatever, and especially if you're busting your butt. And like you said, you got a 30-minute lunch break, you're taking the kids here and there. I mean, the after-school programs and stuff that Thrive, that they put in, I mean, those things just have high impact. So yeah, this is really great. I'm so happy that we're able to have you on and do this series, and we're definitely going to do our part to get the word out. And I feel like, from my perspective, I spend a lot of time talking to multifamily owner operators, right? And so it makes a lot of sense, and help solve that awareness problem at least, right? And hopefully we can help get some people to make those investments, the reinvestment, like you said, and make this happen, and be part of a movement and a transformation, and help that the missing middle class, the workforce people, that housing, that are overlooked.
Yeah, Lance, I'm so grateful. Thank you for bringing voice to this topic, because, like we've said time and time again, there's a lot of people who are getting up and going to work and just feeling like life ain't going to get any better. And is today the day that the emergency happens? Yeah. And, I know that the best moments of my life haven't been because of some big spectacular thing, but it's because somebody in the Starbucks line said, "Here, I'll buy your coffee." Or it's because the neighbor, came over and helped me, carry a bag out of my car. Those are the moments that matter. And so I'm grateful that you've allowed us to share the stage. And we have some incredible partners and founders at Veritas who are leading this vision. And we're excited to help be a part of a movement and a transformation that helps everyone.
Yeah, me too. So it's been great. So veritasimpact.org for more information. Thanks so much, Jennifer. You have a wonderful day.